Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to friends all to another edition of Speaker's Corner of Woodside Park. Tonight we are truly graced by somebody of true greatness. It's the one and only Mr. Edwin Shuker, somebody who's no stranger to these parts, although he is somebody who is now renowned not just in Woodside Park but throughout the world as a result of his travels and his escapades. Edwin is a former vice president of the European Jewish Congress and of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Edwin is also an international activist and public speaker on the Middle East, and in particular on the subject of Jews from Arab countries, especially his native Iraq. And Edwin has engaged in and supported many projects promoting human rights in the Middle East. He's a truly remarkable human being, an outstanding leader, an inspirational, extraordinary person who makes his mark and touches the hearts of every person that he meets. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to call upon the one and only Mr. Edwin Shuker to address us this evening about the Abraham Accords and to hear whether it is something of a mirage or a return to the golden age. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. If you want to write any comments that we can read out, please put them on the screen. I give you Edwin Shuker.
Thank you, Rabbi. I would love to believe these compliments and these wonderful epilogues, but I take it anyway with great humility, and I thank you for even thinking of it for me. I want to share today with you a different story than the stories we had before. I want to share with you what's happening today under the word and the sentence Abraham Accords. So Abraham Accords was something that was signed in August 2020. Whoever remembers in the lawn of the White House in September that year, when the United Arab Emirates, under the patronage of the United States of America, signed an incredibly historic accord, an accord that wasn't just a sort of a cold peace or a stopping of wars, but actually a kind of getting together between nations in terms of normalization, in terms of opening borders, in terms of working together in developing and in bringing blessings to that region. I cannot, being born in that region, I cannot describe my feelings at the time watching that happening. I never thought it will happen in my lifetime. I have been working, we were actually this year, it was 50 years since we escaped from Iraq. And even though I went back several times, I remember all throughout that period dreaming that something like that may happen in my lifetime, a reconciliation between Jew and Arab. And for the last 17, 18 years, since 2003, I've been going back to Iraq, hoping, praying maybe that would turn the tide from the change that happened over the last century, but it never did. And I'm almost sort of reconciled that might not happen. And then suddenly, out of the blue, in an instant, something like this happens, and I wanted to be witnessing it from near. So the last few months since the summer, I've been going very regularly to the United Arab Emirates, to Bahrain, and to the region. I've been, unfortunately, we could not include Israel until please God in the next couple of weeks. But it is a revelation that I want to share with you tonight, and to ask the question that might not have an answer today: is this a mirage or this is for keeps. So first of all, what is the United Arab Emirates? It's a conglomerate of 7 emirates. The biggest one is Abu Dhabi, which is about 84% of the whole thing is Abu Dhabi, and the rest of the 6 is the other 6 emirates, mainly Dubai. It's the government there. It's tribal society. It is ruled by families. The 2 families, in Dubai, as maybe many of you knows, is the family Al Maktoum, and in Abu Dhabi, the Zayids, and it passes on from father to crown prince to it's a kind of a monarchy. They're not called monarchs. They called the sheikh and emir, and they're talking about there's no sort of formal democratic way of voting them in or out, but they rule in the same way as a tribe is. So the citizens of Dubai and the Arab Emirates are not that many. In total, they're about less than 1 million in total. And these are well-known families. They get together with the sheikhs on a very regular basis, and they share the blessings of the land. I mean, if you are a citizen in these places, you are entitled to magnificent housing. You are entitled to health, education in university across the world. So you pretty much may, as a citizen, you have, and that's really what keeps it going. It's not like the sort of corrupt places where the rulers owns everything and then the people are starving. You're absolutely not. So it's almost ruling by consent. Inside these places, the rulers are universally loved, and if you're not loving them, so you don't actually declare it. But that's beside the point. It's a very, very safe place to be in. In fact, Abu Dhabi has been voted the safest city in the world 4 years running, and Dubai comes in not far behind, and Sharjah also. You don't see presence of police or army, but there are cameras everywhere, and intrusive cameras, and you are, without you knowing, you are watched all the time. Now, does that bother people who are there? I really don't feel that. I never seen anyone as a citizen or a resident who's complaining that life is tough or that he feels badly done with, because they all understand the system. They all understand how it rules, and they understand that in order to give them that 100% safety and trouble-free, then that's the price to pay. Now, looking at it from the outside, is it ethical? Is not ethical? That is a question that I would be very happy to answer if anybody wants to ask that question. What their attitude is, that our citizens, we are only obliged to make them happy and to give them the rights, have full rights and more than probably anywhere else that I know of, certainly more than here. What a citizen is entitled to. If you don't like this system, then you can go somewhere else. You don't have to be here. If you're here, you are either here to work hard and to make money, and that relates to the labor. Now, that is sort of where the spotlight of the world is. Is it fair treatment? Are they treated like, no, they're not treated like citizens, but it's, people come in and they could come in huge numbers. If for everyone there was another 10 people who are waiting in the queue, whether they could get in or not. Obviously, completely, totally voluntarily, they're coming in. Now, the government gives them a basic accommodation, basic lifestyle. So, and a salary, which is pre-agreed. It's a year contract. Now, if the labor person wants to save every penny he earns and send it to his family, then he probably go for the basic accommodation. Is the basic accommodation something? No, they're not in flats. They probably are 4 to a room or something like that. But if they want to spend part of their money to go to their own flats, that's open to them. Where you people who are Western, like all the chains, the hotel chains and all that, they actually give accommodation to their staff separately, other than the basic one. They rent flats for them. They rent accommodation in there, mainly to guard for their reputation, but also as a way of saying, okay, so we have the labor. It is cheap labor, but we will treat them, to at least what a Western employee would expect. The numbers I wanted to mention is, so there's 950,000 citizens, and the residents, either labor or businessmen, are 7,300,000. So we're talking about more than 7 to 1 labor, workers, investors to each citizen. Now, I have, for example, a residency there, which gives me the right to work. The residency is for a period, in case of investors, of 3 years, and in case of labor, is 1 year renewable. Some people have been there a lifetime. But we never ever get a citizenship up to now. Certainly, there are things that are moving on to that. For example, now they give the visa for select people like surgeons or professionals that they want. The visa now is 10 years, but not citizenship. Now, it's difficult to describe the incredible miracles that, in terms of consumerism, the best hotels, the highest buildings, the largest shopping centers, and they're all true. They actually is. It is the BBC has 3 episodes, which if you want to watch more about what I'm saying in terms of excesses, in terms of style and quality of life. So the 3 episodes is called Inside Dubai, Playground of the Rich. I watched one last night, but they're available on iPlayer, and obviously it gives a more, they focus on things that are more than the mainstream normal things that you meet on day to day, but it actually gives a great. But the one thing that I could say without hesitation is that everyone I meet there is happy, whether he's a labor or an investor or a tourist or a citizen. They all seem to go with a smile on their faces. So just to give you an example, that I was on the taxi back from Abu Dhabi airport, and I asked him about how many days off he has. So he said, well, he works from 7 to 7. He works 12 hours a day, and he has 2 days off. And I said, well, weekends or what? How does it? He said, no, sir, it's 2 days a month I have off. And I was totally shocked. I was like, do you work 12 hours a day, 28 days a month? He said, well, that's after the Corona, we had 6 months where we worked solid without break at all. We were no holiday, no days off at all. But he said that with a smile on his face, and he said, and I said, thank God, I'm making much more than I thought working on these hours, and so it's difficult for me to judge it. Everyone, I know friends of mine who wouldn't go there because of that sort of thing, but I can only report and leave it to your own conscious how to take it. So this is a general thing. In terms of, by the way, population-wise, in total, very similar to Israel, is 9.5 million. The GDP is also very similar to Israel, just over $400 billion a year. The GDP of the Emirates, and Israel is very, very. Where Israel obviously differ is the 9.5 million in Israel, like all citizens, are entitled to all full rights and this one, and no one after a year have to leave or renew. Okay, so now that's part one. Second part is the relationship over until the Abrahamic Accords. How were they tied? So they've been tied to the West, these emirates, forever. This year, they celebrated the 50 years anniversary since they were given the rights to self-govern from the British. So, and obviously, it was a national 4 days of holidays, and they're so proud to show you what these emirates were 50 years ago and what they are now. I mean, you really, it's very difficult to believe that plain desert, like the airports were just a shack. And Abu Dhabi airport with there's one plane comes in and there's a little hut, and pictures are amazing. Just you can go and see it. And what you see today are the finest, incredible. Everything there is almost perfect in quality. I even 4-star hotels and 3-star hotels, and you see them and you go in there and you say, how can you make something so perfect? Marble, quality, everything is exactly the right way. I don't know. So it's obviously many of you have been there as tourists, but you will see for yourselves when you go that sort of it is very similar to a Club Med or playground or one big thing, because the way these residents are invited in to go 1 year or 3 years or something makes it doesn't make it look like a normal country with its own homeless and poor people and so when I got my residency, I had to pass through medicals, X-rays and eyesight and hearing and the whole thing. So the vast majority of the 7 million who are working there are people who are able, who are either made it, wealthy, creative entrepreneurs, or young laborers who are willing to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to make as much as possible to send to their families. So the vast majority of the see in front of you are consumers who they know homeless. You don't see poor people. You don't see sick people, because the percentages I told you explain why, and you'll see it in these episodes more clearly than we have time to describe. So just to give you so I've been going there since the late 1999. I started going there. I did a couple of business property deals there, just to show you their tolerance at the whole time when everywhere all around them was, Israel was the enemy, or the 20 years ago, or Israel, if you have a stamp on your passport, you can't come in and all that. So at the time, I had two passports, two British passports. One was exclusively for Israel, which I was go very frequently, and was full of Israeli stamps. And the other one I keep for the Arab countries. And I got electronic visa pass from the United Arab Emirates, because I was going frequently. That pass allows you to go into without showing your passport through electronic gates. We're talking early in just after 2003-4. So you flash your pass and you can go in. And one day I got there and I flashed my pass, and it didn't open the gate, and it says go to the counter. And in the counter, the the citizen sitting there with his robe, and this one, they say, come on in. And I confidently took my passport out to give it to him, and I discovered that I actually had the wrong passport. I had the passport that is saved exclusively for Israel. So I just didn't know what to do as I walked through these steps to him, and I handed him the passport, and I waited my fate. And so he looked at it, and he was putting page 1, and obviously there's a couple of stamps, page 2, another 3 stamps, page 4, 4 stamps, 3 stamps, 2 stamps, and he just kept on there, and I was like standing, sweating, waiting for the verdict. And as he finished paging it, he looked at me and he said, "I have a small problem." So I said, in Arabic, "Thank God it's a small problem. I prefer that than a big problem." So he laughed and he said, "You know what my problem is? You obviously have been to Dubai before, otherwise how did you get your pass? But as far as I can see, the only country you've ever visited in your whole life is Israel." So it was, so I cracked up laughing and I said, "Sir, this is the story." And he took the thing with a huge smile and said, "Welcome to Dubai. Make sure that next time you bring the right passport." So that was always been their attitude. There was almost an unofficial consulate, Israeli consulate in Dubai. We all knew about it. It was like an office without signs until it all came clear in 2020 with the Abrahamic Accords, which you have to give credit to the United States of America, Jared Kushner and President Trump, for all his President Trump's faults and things we don't like about him. What that accord could not have possibly been coming in so quickly and gone from there to Bahrain to Morocco to other places without the United States almost pushing them and bringing everybody from his neck and sit them together and says, "Well, enough of the secrecy and enough of discreet and all that low profile, let's go public." And that's what happened. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to speed up a bit. Where are we now in the scene, the Jewish scene there? Okay, so the Jewish scene, so what's happening now is on 3 levels. So level 1 is United Arab Emirates and Israel. Consulate, very active one, embassy in Abu Dhabi, Expo 2020 with the huge Israeli wing there, and there's parties all the time there, and diplomatic meetings, agreements on water, on ecology, on climate, on space, you name it. In fact, the Israeli consul there, he said, this must be one of the busiest consulate in the world. He said, literally weekly, I've got a delegation, Knesset members, ministers, they're coming and going either for business or to take their families off, and it's really truly remarkable how welcome they are and how they feel at home. The second section is Jews from Arab countries, basically represented by Rabbi Eli Abadi, who was born in Beirut. He was born in Syria, grew up in Beirut, speaks Arabic, and he's the official senior rabbi of the Emirates. And recently, 3 weeks ago, he hired his own big synagogue, temple, call it what you want, center, and called the Villa. And there, you hear the melodies of the East and the Arabic spoken, and people like myself, whose culture is Arabic, and who sees the return as in historical term. And then there is the Jewish community there, normal Jewish community that you find, Ashkenazi, mostly businessmen, mostly transient, who are been there for 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, 1 year, 2 months, come and go. These are communities that are springing up. So at the moment, there is at least every Shabbat 5 minyanim. A sixth one just opened up now. So we're talking about 6 minyanim. At the moment, all of them are Orthodox. And one in Abu Dhabi. We're talking about restaurants going from the Armani hotel kosher restaurant to Tel Aviv restaurant, where my office is on top of the Tel Aviv restaurant, to falafel places, to there were at one time 7. I think 2 of them have closed down. There's catering. You could get full catering service. Amazing. You want spicy food, you want Tunisian food, you want all coming to your house, fully kosher. You have a community center which is launching, was supposed to launch last week. It's going to launch in the next couple of weeks because of Corona. This is going to be, it's a JDC, it's magnificent. It's going to be non-denominational, no prayers, but like JW3, mini JW3. There is something called Mini Miracles, nursery, a little school, and then a magnificent mikveh, which I will show you some pictures, and you'll agree that probably it's the most magnificent in the world. And that was sponsored completely by Sheikh Mohammed Al-Abar, and he paid for it. That's the first mikveh in the Gulf area. And as a community, we are on WhatsApps, and it's truly, I've never prayed so much in I don't know, ever, because you get on the WhatsApp saying, okay, this is Chabad at the Hilton. We have 7 definites. We need another 3 in half an hour. Please rush in because somebody's doing Kaddish. And we are constantly filling in for minyanim in the various places, and even tish and farbringers and things that I've never heard before. It's all over the place. Right. So I'm going to show some pictures if Jackie could help me with it, Jacqueline. Right. So this is one of the minyan on the Palm, the famous 5-star hotel St. Regis, a magnificent Friday night. This is the first Women's Jewish Congress in Dubai, which is now 19th of January. Welcome you for this one. Next is this is the AMSCL. This is Milk and Honey. This is the center that a drop-in center is going to be. The next is the Shabbat Shalom. This is Rabbi Abadi's new place, the Bar Mitzvah. The best Friday night dinner I have eaten, bar none, including Esther's incredible cooking. This was like a 6-course meal, like I can't even describe it. So next, this is the nursery, Mini Miracles. This is the mikveh. Can we see some pictures? Look at it. This is, I don't know if you've seen a more magnificent one. Next. This. Okay. And then, next. Right. Okay, stop here for a second. I also want to mention that in Abu Dhabi, they are building the Abraham family house, which is a magnificent construction of a church, a synagogue, a church, and a mosque, all in one big place, with a central place for all 3 religions to mingle and probably have herring for Kiddush in the middle of the 3 services. It's a unique contribution. At the moment, it's receiving mixed sort of welcome, especially in sort of the rabbis who sort of see this as as you know, now it's almost like a new religion called the Abrahamic religion, which is a mixture of all three together. So it's not 100% yet until we understand how is it going to run and who's going to be running and all that. That's going to open towards the end of 2022. Okay, so this time to remember is can you go back 1 second? This is Sheikh Ahmed al-Mansouri, who 10 years ago opened this incredible complex of 4 museums dedicated to the cross-culture, different religions, and even the authorities told him to slow down a little bit, because one of the things that if you must have read about the Holocaust Museum in Dubai, one of those museums he dedicated recently to, about a year ago, to exactly a year ago, to the Holocaust, and this on the 26th of January, a time to remember in an Arab museum exclusively for the Holocaust. And I'm working with him to convince him to have one of the other one being the history of the Jews from Arab countries as a second of the museums. It's a must. Everyone who comes in, Israeli Jew, whatever, goes straight into that and greeted personally by Sheikh al-Mansouri. Okay, next. Yes, this is inside the museum. Just, yep. And this is Yael, his personal assistant. And this is Sheikha Sarah, so a story on its own, what Sheikha Sarah is. And I will probably have a future talk about her and her family. Next. This is Sheikh Ahmed al-Mansouri. Next. Inside, this is a visiting British professor, and it's a non-stop visitors coming in from all over the world. Next. Okay, so this is now Bahrain, and very quickly, Bahrain it's got a community since the 19th century, mainly Iraqi families which left early in the middle of the 18th century, 1840, 1850, to Bahrain and set up a community there. And what's left now is about 55 people from that, but very, very active, including 2 ambassadors and including one in the small shura, the advisory to the king. They are close to the kings. They've got a beautiful synagogue which was completely redone up recently. This is a genuine local community, and now it's been obviously beefed up, and there's an ambassador, Israeli ambassador. Many of you might know him, Eitan Naeh, who was here for 5 years in the embassy here. So he's now the ambassador there. And again, Bahrain totally opened up to Israel, even more so than the United Arab Emirates. There's flights, United El Al direct flights, and Gulf going to Israel. And by the way, there's in times of Corona, there were more than 60 planes a week between Israel and Dubai. And once in the next 2, 3, 4 months, this number will increase. Okay, how are we doing? It's 2050. Rabbi or Jackie, can anybody tell me how much time have I got? Rabbi?
Thank you, Edwin. I think if you'd like to wrap up this section, then we'll move over to the questions.
I will not wrap up. I will say what I want to say, my personal story. Do I have 5 minutes or 10?
10 minutes.
Okay, great. That's perfect. That's more than enough. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about. United Arab Emirates, their codes, the Jewish community now. And now I am going to talk about why I went there, why I feel, what is my story. And so Rabbi Sachs, Zichrono Lebracha, talks about the importance of story for the Jewish people. And he took that was in Parashat Bo, when Moshe Rabbeinu has not yet finished his work. The last Makkah has not even arrived, and he, instead of preparing them, instead of giving them instructions, he was telling them how to tell the story to their children and grandchildren and so on. And that's really, if you can read that Parashah's commentary, it tells you, because when you make a story, then you live up to it. And the story that we repeat on every year in the Pesach, that is the story of the Jewish people. And I have a story as well, and you have a story as well, and that we are built on stories. And my story tells me that my ancestors were obviously taken captives from Jerusalem into Babylon, and they lived there for 2,600 years. And I was the last of that after all these years. When I left now, there's only 3-4 Jews left in Iraq. It's almost wrapping up the book, that whole chapter of exile. And my story tells me, personally, I grew up in Baghdad. The first 8 years were bliss, was paradise. The last 8 years were hell. And in a way, I was looking for the paradise in that relationship. I've always said, we stayed in Egypt 210 years as slaves, and in Babylon 2,600 years of exile. So we repeat every time Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. We always remember Mitzrayim and the lessons from Mitzrayim, and how we should treat the stranger here, because we were once strangers. And I'm thinking, hey, for 210 years we still talk about it every Shabbat and every Chag. What about the 2,600 years? When does that come into operation? And now this is when it came to operation. Now I feel a full circle. I feel I'm back. I'm back to the place, but now in a different hat. I was there as part of the last exile. The exile now went back home to Jerusalem. The vast number of, certainly from Jews from Arab countries, are back home after all that. And the chapter of the book of exile is finished, is closed. But I want to say now there's a new book coming in. So I was witness to the last chapter, but I'm now a witness to the first chapter of a new book called the Book of Blessings. And that comes in from Jerusalem. The Jew is back home, and he's going to visit his Arab neighbor as the children of Abraham, representing Yitzchak and Ishmael. And if you read the interpretation of Lord Sachs again on that chapter, on the relationship, you know that after the death of Sarah, Yitzchak reconciled, went back to Ishmael, and when they came to burying their father, they were there hand in hand burying their father. And so I am now witnessing that part. I'm witnessing the two brothers getting back together, and I want to be there. I want to be part of that scene, and I want to feel what the importance of being a Jew, an observant Jew, bringing with him what God told Abraham and afterwards told Yaakov. He said, you will be a blessing, not I am blessing you or I giving you a car or a palace. No, you, just your presence will be a blessing. And I feel it. I feel it when we are there now, Chabad and the rabbis and everyone. We are doing Kiddush Hashem in that area, in showing the Arabs that we are in it together. We chose to come and live within them, between them, and we chose to bring the blessing of the Jew to that region. I want to end up with the two clips that are close to my heart, and then afterwards we can ask questions. Jackie, could you please play the two clips?
Is to help heal a broken world. We are the people who don't stand still. We are the people for whom life is a journey to a world of justice and compassion and healing, which is not yet, but which we will not cease until we help bring it about.
That a nation is strong.
I've read it many times, but only today I decipher it. I read it in Bereshit, in Genesis chapter 12. And it says, God Almighty talking to Abraham, and he says, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great. And listen to this. And you shall be a blessing. And he carries on and says, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you. AJC, Lech Lecha, go forth, be the blessing we are, and let the families of the earth be blessed by us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. I think we're all lost for words, blown away by that mesmerizing whirlwind of a presentation by you, Edwin. It really was phenomenal and fantastic, and we're seeing now the reaction and responses by those that have watched it in awe. Let me just ask a couple of questions, Edwin. I'm sure there'll be more on the screen, which you'll be able to see yourself. I think the first question that many will be wondering is obviously the United States administration were, key players behind the Abraham Accords. So I guess the question is, what is their involvement now and for the future in terms of the direction of the Abrahamic Accords?
The Biden administration does not have the same enthusiasm or the same vision, and it is actually a slowdown of these. We were hoping that the Abraham Accords will spread fast and furiously across the region, but this is not the priority of the Biden administration. And the whole Middle East is confused, including Israel, as where are they going? What is their policy? Why are they getting closer again to Iran? Why are they courting Iran back? But that's the truth. That's the fact at the moment.
Thank you for that, Edwin. The next question, which we have, I think is really a follow-on, is what has been the reaction, the backlash from the rest of the Arab world, particularly the Palestinians, vis-a-vis the Abraham Accords? What's been their reaction and response to it?
It's a very aptly question today. If those people who heard the news, there was a major attack on Abu Dhabi today, and another one on Saudi, which was thwarted. But it was a very painful attack. It was carried on by the Houthis in Yemen, but also by it was just the Houthis are like Hezbollah, like the Shiite militias in Iraq, are totally puppets in the hands of Iran. And this was Iran's fingerprints on it. The attack, at least 3 people were killed, 6 people were badly injured. There were drone attacks, and that's the sort of part of the reaction. In the Arab world, the reaction has been more quiet. Totally, I expected a lot more in places like Iraq and Syria against it, but actually it was greeted by, well, they are independent, they can do whatever they want, and they can choose their friends if this is it. It bid well to the future, but the enemy, the cancer, is Iran, and they are everywhere in that, and they were let in everywhere by the United States of America. They are in Lebanon, they're in Syria, they're in Iraq, they're in Yemen, and they will not rest until they get their portion of what they think is owed to them.
Okay. So, in view of the fact that it's a very delicate situation in the Middle East, Israel doesn't make any secret of it. In fact, it's quite proud of the fact that it sells arms to the United Arab Emirates, does that not pose a danger in case the winds of change bring about a change in the perspective of those that are there? Are we not threatening the fragile Abraham Accords by having negotiations and sale of arms to the United Arab Emirates by Israel?
Well, first of all, Israel is a very smart player in the region. It is by far the strongest and the closest normally to the United States, and therefore it knows exactly what it does, and it doesn't need Edwin Shuker or Rabbi Hackenbrock to warn them against that. I do feel that as far as the Emirates and certainly in Bahrain, and this is not a friendship that will turn sour to the extent that it will go into wars and armies and things like that. And if it does, then certainly it won't be in the next 10 years. And by then, whatever Israel is selling them will be out of date. So I don't think there's a danger in that. But I want to say one thing, that when I talk to the local community, Jewish community, and the Israelis and this one, is that it is also now up to us to rise up to the occasion, us being the Jews, us being Israel. I showed you what the Sheikh has done in building the mikvah, in doing this other museum, in doing a Holocaust museum, in having Chanukiot all over Dubai, in the main square of Dubai. And the moment is one way, the give, we are giving, we are taking. And at one stage, we will also need to be starting to give them what we can of blessings in the same type of quantity and quality that they are giving us. So that's the one thing that I would point out to, that where it could get cooler is if we keep on not rising to the same amount of giving as they are expecting.
Fair enough. So I guess one of the last questions would be, well, where next? Which country would you see as being the next to enter into the Abrahamic Accords?
Well, Oman was almost ready to sign. It was literally weeks away. Obviously, if you know that Oman was the first country that hosted Netanyahu, and proudly so, and we go there. It's also extremely open. Then they decided to wait and see which administration it comes. And when the Biden administration did not give the same signals, Oman decided, you know what, we'll wait. We're happy with what we have. People come and go. We don't need to upgrade it to this one. And that's the pity of the break into that message that came from America. I would tell you where I'm going next, and then you could work out. So at the end of the month, my first trip is going to be to Saudi Arabia, and from there I hope to report back as to the beginning of opening up to receiving Jews and to actually welcome them and to welcome communities. And I look forward to that trip very much.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, I have to say that if there is, it sounds incredible, and from the way that you have depicted and described Dubai, it really sounds like something from the Garden of Eden. I guess, Edwin, when you are there, the only thing that is really missing for you is us, and so therefore we must plan together a trip urgently so that we can all hear and celebrate with you Shabbat and the wonderful Jewish hospitality of Dubai in the not too distant future. But that's something for us to work on. It will be in the pipeline. But for the time being, let me just take the opportunity to humbly thank on the community's behalf. We have been overwhelmed with huge numbers that are watching both tonight, and I know many that are going to be playing catch-up TV later. So we want to thank you, Edwin, so much from the bottom of our hearts for your absolutely inspirational, informative, and really fascinating first-hand account, a real expert in the field, which gives us an insight which otherwise we would never really have. And I'm sure it's plenty of food for thought for us in the, I guess, the redrawing in the sands of the Middle East. And we look forward to hearing the next glorious chapter in the Middle East and in the Abrahamic Accords, which I'm sure you will keep us updated. But on our behalf, thank you so much. Wishing you Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum, wherever you are in the world. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Edwin sign off.